QRSTVWXYZ. What's missing from that picture? You are. But you don't have to be missing from the picture anymore with skylight frames. And these frames are for everyone, okay? Whether you're tech savvy or not, it's easy to operate for like your parents and grandparents who might not be so tech savvy. Also, if you are, you can actually add these little doodles. You draw a picture on your app and it shows up directly on your loved one's skylight frame. Perfect for adding a personal touch or a bit of fun. This holiday season, give the gift that keeps on giving: memories. Whether it's for grandparents who adore seeing the grandkids' latest antics or a friend who loves capturing every freaking moment, the skylight frame is the perfect gift to bring joy and connection into any home. It's so easy to set up and start sharing. You don't need an app or subscription. Just takes a minute. Designed to be easy for all ages. You plug in the frame and you're ready to start sharing memories. This is better than social media. It's private. You don't have to post your photos to the world. You don't have to print hard copies. Also, Skylight guarantees your satisfaction. They're so confident they offer you free 120-day returns. And for a limited time, get 20% off your purchase of a Skylight frame when you go to ca.skylightframe.com/hockey. That's right. To get 20% off your Skylight frame, just go to ca.skylightframe.com/hockey. That's ca.skylightframe.com/HOCKEY.
What's up, champs? Welcome to another episode of the Short Shifts Fantasy Hockey Podcast, brought to you by Keeping Karlsson. I'm your host, Louis Ezekiel. Joining me tonight, my pal and yours, Ryan Downey. Ryan, how are you doing on this mediocre Tuesday evening? I'm not going to call it a fine Tuesday evening. I'm too frustrated.
You know, I'm doing fine. I feel like I probably shouldn't take up too much time here because you've had quite the odyssey tonight. Why don't you let the listeners in on a bit of what you've been working through as this night has progressed?
All right. Well, I will try and be quick about it because no one tuned in necessarily to hear this stuff. But I added a guy that we'll talk about in a little bit. He got injured in the first period, so that was my Carolina player who was going to get me 3 bonus games. I also had Gustav Nyquist, who I decided not to drop because he got boosted to the top power play. I dropped Nemesnikov instead. Nyquist decides that he's too sick to play. Jonathan Marchment has scored twice at even strength from the spot that he would be in. Nyquist would. I said when Nyquist went out, I said, I bet my house that Nemesnikov scores tonight after back-to-back cardio sessions in his last 2 games for me, including that Sunday Savior game. And wouldn't you know it, I guess I get a free house out of all of this. So I guess that's the positive spin here. But it's been an up and down evening. I am hoping to get a little bit of a short shifts bump out of this experience.
And that's why I gave you the floor, because we need you to get that short shifts bump. And we can't have you losing to 14th place 2 weeks in a row.
That's right. It's the enviable task. So last week's 14th place defeated me and was no longer in 14th place. So I have the chance here to lose to 14th twice in a row if I can pull it off, which would be quite the feat. But let's get started here. And of course, I think we got to talk about the biggest news item here that everybody has been enjoying talk about, and that is the goaltending swap between the Sharks and the Avalanche with Georgiev and Blackwood trading spots. Kovalenko also went back to San Jose, and there were some other minor pieces and a pick in there. But we're worried about fantasy hockey. Let's talk about the impact that it's going to have here on Blackwood and Georgiev. My initial impressions, and I know you went deep into this, so I'll give you the floor here in a minute. But sort of my initial reaction is I feel like this is pretty good for Blackwood. He's going to get more offensive support when fully healthy. The Avs are obviously much deeper than the Sharks, although the Sharks have been playing quite well lately. They did end up losing just a little bit ago, giving up a late goal to Jalen Chatfield to give up their chance at a victory. But Mostly, I am, I think everyone is more or less in agreement. This is a nice spot for Blackwood. If you were holding Blackwood, suddenly you got a nice upgrade there. I'm worried about what it might mean for Georgiev. We didn't see him start for the Avs today. Wedgwood got a chance to earn another victory, but I imagine we will see Blackwood next. And Georgiev didn't start for the Sharks. It was Vanacek who ended up taking that loss. What I worry most about is Georgiev has the worst high danger save percentage in the league. Colorado was not doing a great job preventing those high danger chances, but they were a bottom third team. But now he goes to a bottom eighth team, the fourth worst team in the league at giving up high danger chances. I worry that he might, he's not kind of the presumed starter or anything, so he might not, he might even end up splitting starts. But I think it could be kind of nasty for him in terms of some of the looks that the Sharks are giving up that he already has struggled with in Colorado.
Yeah, it's an interesting situation, certainly with Georgiev. I wouldn't blame you if you dropped him when you heard this news or if he was already off your roster by this point. I think people are forgetting or have forgotten that Georgiev was a backup goaltender in New York. He wasn't the starter. He was firmly behind Shesterkin. And so it's not like Colorado signed him expecting him to be this kind of world beater. When it comes to goaltending performances, I like to look at quality starts and really bad starts as a metric for baseline goaltending performance. It's obviously not telling you the whole story, but I think it's a good starting place. Georgiev is 6-6 for this season for games that could be determined as quality starts or really bad starts. And the record since his little break in late October was 6-3. So he's been doing better recently. I actually wouldn't be surprised to see him rebound a little bit in San Jose with less workload. As part of a tandem, he will probably get more starts than Vanacek, who is a very similar goalie to him, all things considered. Either way, this is a gut punch to a recently good Sharks team that looked to have the kind of jump and energy that a young developing team should have, as Georgiev is certainly a downgrade from Blackwood. You mentioned high danger save percents and chances against with San Jose. Blackwood is actually one of the better goalies in the league with those high danger chances with his combination of strength and athleticism. Blackwood's an interesting one here as well. He has been at points in his career the worst goalie in the league and the best goalie in the league. He's been remarkably inconsistent through his time in the league. This will be his last chance to prove that he can be a 1A in the NHL. And I think if he can buckle down and avoid some of the injuries and personal problems that have plagued him in his career, that he can reach those lofty heights. As I said, he's a great athlete. He's flexible, but big enough to cut off the angles on even some of the best shooters in the league. The question with Blackwood has always been whether he can lock in mentally. And I would think with the Colorado Avalanche D-core in front of him that he should be able to focus on his game and really arise to, again, those lofty heights that we thought that he might be able to reach.
So you mentioned maybe dropping Georgiev. I did not wait to see Georgiev in teal. I had the opportunity to swap him out for Darcy Kemper. Shams was telling me in the chat, I think it could potentially end up kind of even because you're going to see Georgiev taking more shots and Kemper, probably getting better, quality and winning more games. I'll take that. It's less frustrating, having fewer shots taken on you. I can live with much better than, having the opponent score on their first shot whenever they have the opportunity, which it seemed like was happening for a while with Georgiev. Shams is a smart guy. Kemper's only made 19 saves tonight, 1 goal against. So it's not a ton of volume, but the team is playing well. And it looks like barring a big change in the last minute 6 here, he's going to get a victory over the Islanders. Obviously, you folks listening already know the outcome of that one.
I completely agree with Shams here. And let's be honest, we've talked a lot about Georgiev here, but the real winners here are the Blackwood owners. I tried to become one of them as soon as I heard about this deal, and he was already snapped up. So kudos to my co-managers in the Cupful. As for the Wedgwood owners who have been enjoying his recent stint with Colorado, you probably should have known better than to assume he'd be the starter long-term. So I hope you enjoyed those games that turned him into a cult hero in Denver. You got to give him props for coming in down so many goals against New Jersey and still pulling out the win. You don't see that every day unless You're Sebastian Cossa facing the Buffalo Sabres. Cossa came in last night after Ville Husso let in 3 quick ones to the Sabres, playing the last 2 periods for the Detroit Red Wings, pulling out the win for the Wings. Lewis, you're a Motown guy. What did you think watching that Husso-Cossa game last night?
Yeah, I mean, very exciting to see. Certainly, this is becoming a bit of a pattern with Buffalo. They chase the opposition goalie. They are now 2 victories, 2 defeats, and 2 overtime losses in games where they chase the opposing goalie. So it's pretty, imagine that's quite infuriating for the Sabres. I'm fully Iser-pilled. Obviously, Cossa winning this game means that they did not screw up in selecting Cossa over Wallstedt, and I won't complain about that anymore. So, this obviously just shows us, the guy knew what he was doing all along. No, I mean, that's obviously a massive overreaction, but really cool moment for him. Cool to see the end of the shootout. I actually watched it with my oldest kid, and we just, kind of had a good time watching this guy in his first NHL action. So good on you, Cossa. I'm not, there's nothing that I think is particularly fantasy relevant about it all, but nice to see, certainly as a Red Wings fan.
I will share, we were talking with Shams about this earlier in the day. Shams also a Red Wings fan, and Shams cops to the fact that he's not a prospect person, but doesn't know how that the Red Wings could trot out Husso again on Thursday, as he has the same amount of really bad starts as quality starts this season. Husso has had a good couple of games prior to this recent debacle, so I guess he could get the nod, but he hasn't, not exactly been a paragon of consistency in his time as a Red Wing. Shams thinks that giving Cossa a start against the Flyers would be a good idea. I agree. And hopefully someone comes back to take on the Leafs on Saturday. However, if the Leafs keep shooting like they did tonight, it won't really matter who the Red Wings have in net.
Yes, that is a good point. Last thing I will add on here is that another player that we have talked about also has equal numbers of really bad starts and quality starts, and that is Alexander Georgiev. So that was part of my decision making with Kemper, was that he was a guy who had 2/3 quality starts, just 1 out of 9 games, or I'm sorry, 1 out of 11 games was a really bad start. So that also, that consistency, maybe not as exciting. The highs are lower, but the lows are higher, so to speak. All right, let's jump on to another topic here. We saw the results of another trade. We saw Jacob Trouba make his Anaheim debut on Monday. 1 shot and 5 hits in 22 minutes of ice time. He did have a nice sequence setting up some chances at the end of the 3rd period. This Trouba's a guy. Now he's a Michigan guy, so I like him in spite of all of the obnoxious things about him. He was definitely a big deal when he was in Ann Arbor, and I saw him a couple times at Yost. He's rostered in 38% of Yahoo leagues and 96% of Cupful divisions. I got to ask, is he worth holding at this point now that he's over in Anaheim? I have questions about it. I know that the Rangers offense has not been anything special to speak of either. I'm just worried that we have some snoozing GMs potentially here in the Cupful relying on name value. He's still doing his periffs thing this season. He's got a hit and a half a game, more than a hit and a half a game, close to 3 blocks a game. He's shooting fewer than 2 shots, which is among his lowest outputs in his career. He's got 6 assists total in 25 games played. Now he's on a less offensive team. Recent results maybe notwithstanding. Let me hear your thoughts on this, and then I put together a list of guys that I think I would rather have than Trouba. Tell me what you think if I'm crazy here, but what do you think about Trouba?
Yeah, I'm not holding on to him. I think that people who are holding on to him are probably thinking, oh, well, he's the Rangers captain. And so, there must be something going on here. This is a player I should hold on to. I don't think you should. As I was saying on the Discord this week when the news broke, I think the impact that Trouba will make on the Anaheim Ducks is localized in 2 places. In the dressing room, first of all, where he can be a veteran leader for a lot of those young players, and in the defensive zone, where he will be, pushing down some of these young defensemen into more appropriate roles. Allowing the Michikovs and the Zellwegers and the Luneaus and the Lacombes to, develop at a more linear rate without having, the expectations of 20 plus minutes per night. I would rather see some of those guys playing 18 to 20 rather than 20 to 25. And so certainly Trouba will take some of the strain off of those guys. I think eventually Trouba will get moved to a playoff team, whether it's this trade deadline or the next trade line at a discount, perhaps, a la Joel Edmondson or Ilya Lyubushkin. Unfortunately, I heard a rumor today that the Leafs are interested. I hope they don't do that, but I wouldn't be surprised if Brad Treliving does his Brad Treliving thing and brings in Jacob Trouba at the deadline. Who are you thinking you'd rather have than Trouba? I'm sure the list is fairly long.
Well, I put together 3 names of people who were fairly low owned, at least in Yahoo, who I thought would be interesting, who can kind of provide some of the same bash stats. But maybe are scoring a little better. So here's the list I put together. Alex Vlasic is equally owned in Cupful, very high, but only 10% owned in Yahoo. So at least, people in those other Yahoo leagues could go out and grab him. He has 4 points in the last 6 games. He's seeing 22 minutes of game time minimum, playing top power play and top penalty kill, 22 shots over the last 8 games. So give me Alex Vlasic. Marcus Pettersson, only 10% owned in Cupful, 5% on Yahoo. He had points in 3 straight. And I believe he might have added one here on Tuesday as well. So at least he's providing you with some scoring that you're certainly not seeing from Trouba right now. Ristolainen was on a decent run. Not a great game today, but there were a lot of Flyers who were kind of left out in the cold despite this 5-goal outburst that they had against Columbus. That might be pushing it. Maybe not Risto. But Vlasic and Pettersson, I think I would be swapping Trouba out. And I don't think I would have been saying it at the start of the year just because of the name value element to it, at least.
100%, no notes. I'm an Alex Vlasic owner in multiple leagues, redraft and dynasty. I really love that player. Maybe in a future episode we can go into him if he, does something a little more exciting going forward. But yeah, definitely would take Alex Vlasic. And Marcus Pettersson, very interesting player. We actually have slated to talk about coming up next some teammates of Marcus Pettersson. So why don't we jump right into that?
Great idea.
You've posted some funky power play units from the Pittsburgh Penguins. Why don't you read those out to us?
Yeah, and so we did double check. They did run these. They did run these with one small change. So the power play units pretty much played evenly. You've got Crosby, Raquel, Hayes, Letang, and Grzelcyk on one. And then you've got Malkin, Glass, Rust, Bunting, and Carlson. I believe Cody Glass was replaced by Phil Tomasino because he returned from injury and played here. So a lot of people looking at that kind of in horror. What's your reaction here? Are we excited for Hayes and Grzelcyk to have this opportunity? It did last the full game. They worked on it for a couple practices. Is this something that you think is going to stick? Is there anything actionable here? I guess was my question when I posted this lineup originally.
Well, the last time I was effusive about a bottom 6 caliber player getting a better opportunity and not doing anything with it, Cam Atkinson went wild and got a couple of goals. So I will temper this a little bit, but I'm really not into Kevin Hayes. I don't see any reason to be into Kevin Hayes. He's an NHL player, I guess, but, he's not a very good one. I could be convinced on Grzelcyk, though. 4 points in his last 5 games, 3 of them on the power play, and so you can't deny that he's taking advantage of his opportunity. As always, though, once he loses that deployment, you can move on from him. There's plenty of points to go around in Pittsburgh, and he is not going to be the first option all of the time. The player who I am most interested in, though, is the youngest, Tomasino. Philip Tomasino, recently being traded from Nashville to Pittsburgh, is getting more opportunity moving from one talent-bereft team to the other. He's playing in the top 6 in Pittsburgh and getting more and better ice time. His skill set has always been that of a complementary play driver. He'll work hard on the cycle and create offense via dogged determination, but he's had trouble converting in a bottom 6 role in the NHL despite his near point per game stats in the American Hockey League. If he was available in my division, I would take him just to see if by playing with better finishers like Raquel, Malkin, or even Crosby, we see a mini breakout from him. Certainly, he is the age where you might be expecting that breakout to come. And I think just, the opportunity for young center to watch a guy like Sidney Crosby or watch a guy like Gito Malkin, how they prepare, how they work out, how they play the game. I think this is really good for Tomasino's development.
Yeah, right on. Well, good for him. I hope he does benefit from it. He's a player that I like, and I see all these guys leave Nashville. I think we talked about this last week, or we've seen some of these guys take off from Nashville and really have some success. So fingers crossed for him. I like the guy definitely. All right, let's get into one last headline here, and then we'll take a quick break. Carolina are your Friday and Sunday schedule guys. Is there anyone out there that you like to add in for a couple games? They also have a Tuesday, Friday, Sunday schedule next week, so they may be valuable for you to hold on to a couple times. Next week is another kind of standard schedule type week where you got your usual busy days. Is there anyone out there for Carolina that you are interested in? I'll let you start, and then I'll talk a little bit about who I went and grabbed, and a little bit about friend of the show, not friend of the show, other Short Shifts host, Jeremy Versillo, who made a choice here, which I thought went quite well for him.
Yeah, I'd love to hear more about those choices. I love the promise of Carolina, but the execution of Carolina is often not what is promised. And Brind'Amour, with the way he likes to shake up those lines and play a very direct style of game, he's not our favorite coach for fantasy purposes. I considered Eric Robinson, as I have multiple times, this season. And if we're just talking on a pure talent perspective, I'm really into Jackson Blake. He has really made the most of his early opportunity here in the NHL. But full disclosure that I didn't make any Carolina Hurricane picks. Tell us more about what Jeremy did, though.
Okay, so I'll share my bit first. It's a quick one. I thought I would add Drury. I liked him because he had at times centered Natchez, even if just briefly. So I thought if things get shaken around again during the course of the week, his chances were to maybe improve rather than go down. But he took an upper body injury and was out for the game, and I imagine will be out for the remainder of this week. We'll see how that turns out, but tough to add someone who you're hoping to get 3 games out of and get about a period. But yeah, so Jeremy was talking about who he would think to add. He ended up going with Roslovic, who was available, which would have been my first choice too. And he, of course, got an assist, but he also added William Carrier. And that was a nice choice too, because he also assisted on the same goal. His thinking was, just pick up some, regular kind of grind line type stats, get some periffs in there, and he would be valuable across those 3 games, not, feast or famine, if he scores or doesn't score. So getting both assists on the same goal was pretty fun. We were joshing him in the Short Shifts chat. So good pick, Jeremy. Well done. My pick. Thumbs down. I got 1 move left this week. I got to be very careful with it. I can probably kick Drury off my lineup once Darlene comes back off, which hopefully will be Saturday. There's a little ouchery preview for you. All right, with that, we're going to take a quick break here. You're listening to Short Shifts.
I love being at a hockey game. I love the sights, the sounds, the slap of I really like the slap of the puck and the stick, like during warm-ups. That's my weird thing about going to a hockey game. But you know what? Sometimes it's annoying getting there because buying tickets can be so frustrating. But not with Game Time. They have this feature called Game Time Picks where they filter out the fluff and they show you only incredible deals on great seats. So you have to waste your time searching through thousands of tickets. I'm looking through the app right now. I see tickets for Preds visiting the Senators, Isles visiting the Senators, all at an amazing price. Penguins. They also have lacrosse tickets for the local lacrosse team, which is either the Rock or the Black Bears. I don't know enough about the local lacrosse scene to know. I'm sorry. I see PWHL tickets, Victory at La Victorie at the Charge. And what else? Oh, we've got Sesame Street Live, Katy Perry. I'll buy all the tickets because it's so easy. And you can see what the view looks like from your seat at a glance as you're scrolling through the options. And Game Time also offers the lowest price guarantee, or they will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code THPN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code THPN for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time.
The 2024-25 NHL season still has that new car smell, and the action is heating up at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. It's super easy for first-timers to get started at DraftKings Sportsbook. Try betting on something simple like picking a team to win. You can also pick on a player to score a goal. You can bet on a whole bunch of things. And if you're new to DraftKings, listen up. New customers bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code THPN. That's code THPN. Stands for the Hockey Podcast Network for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings, the crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ice.
Welcome back to Short Shifts. Ryan, last time we worked together, we did, injuries and outries. It seemed like the whole show. This week, much lighter on the injuries and outries, but some exciting outry news. Why don't you give us an update from the Canucks crease?
Yeah, Thatcher Demko has finally made his return to action, which means Kevin Lankinen owners are probably a little sad lately. He has been great, and he has been worth every penny that the Vancouver Canucks signed him to right before the season here. The fallout here, obviously, besides the fact that one of the best goaltenders in the league has returned on one of the better teams in the league, is that Lankinen is going to lose a lot of his value here. And, if I'm holding on to Lankinen, I would probably be moving on because realistically, how many backup goaltenders will give you positive value in a league like the Cupful? Obviously, though, you want to keep your finger on the pulse here in case Demko goes down again. They've been pretty cagey with his injury status throughout the past couple of years in Vancouver. So if he goes out for a day or two, he could be out for a month or two. That's just part of owning Thatcher Demko as he struggles with this particularly rare injury that he has in his knee. So I'm going to, echo Elon as well. It's crazy to me that Lankinen went so late in the offseason without being signed. You have to think a few teams' GMs would have loved what he's brought Vancouver these past few months. Maybe Colorado doesn't make the move to pick up Wedgwood if they picked up a Kevin Lankinen for basically free. So yeah, it's exciting to see Demko come back. But if you're a Lankinen owner, I'm sorry.
Yeah, obviously a bit of a blow there, but listen, you got a ton of great value out of him. So I was talking to Shams on the same topic, just thinking about, should he drop, people who are playing more regularly like Merzlikins, or should it be Lankinen? And I do think, Lankinen could, even for the first couple weeks, maybe see a 50-50 split, but that's not worth a ton in a league like the Cupful when you are sacrificing that slot. Overall, I think you're just not really getting the kind of value you would like to get there, even if he plays nicely. So a streamer, certainly. He's someone who I kind of hope to see hit the wire so that I can run out and try to grab him when there's an opportunity to get a nice stream. But otherwise, thanks for the memories, Lankinen. And we'll see you next time you need to fill in for a potential injury. Great. And that game has just dropped. So obviously you listening to the show probably know better than we do about how Demko performed, but it'll be interesting to see how it goes. And if I'm the Lankinen person, I'll shoot my shot now. I'm not waiting to see how the game ends. I think I'm ready to move on to somebody who's going to play a bit more regularly. Let's similarly move on. And we'll talk about some hot and cold players. I wanted to start with a cold player who I thought was pretty interesting. Pavel Dorofeyev has not scored in the last 4 games, although he has still been getting 17-plus minutes of ice time in 3 of the 4 and close to 3 shots per game. With Stone back, he spent last game off of power play 1 and off of line 1. Is it time to let him go? This is a guy, he can't be lined up for the GM against me every week, so he's not going to be playing spectacularly like he did a couple weeks ago. He's lost a lot of his opportunity here. Is this a guy you want to hold on to? He had a great start to the season, but I'm looking at him as maybe someone whose time has passed a little bit.
I've been an occasional Dorofeyev owner this season, and I felt comfortable letting him go for a better option at points. I remember one time in particular, Shams gave me his patented sideways eyeball emoji asking how I could have let him go. That might actually change because as long as Dorofeyev keeps shooting 3 shots a game, I am kind of interested. His shooting percentage is still hanging around his career average of 14%. And despite what people may believe, Eichel is not the primary assister on most of Dorofeyev's goals. I think he's a pretty good player and should stay in that top 6, getting his 17 minutes a night, which makes him rosterable for me. I particularly like watching him set up the pre-shot movement. He really, that's the way to score right now in the NHL is to get that goalie moving left to right. He is really proficient in that little skill. And so he is rosterable for me, although I think probably not until after Christmas because Vegas, they're starting the holidays early with an incredibly light schedule up until that point. So keep an eye on Dorofeyev, keep him on your watch list, or if you have room, we got a couple of busy nights in the next weeks. So if you're going to hold on to him anyways, there'd be worse players to keep than Pavel Dorofeyev.
All right. Yeah, good point. I'm not feeling it, but I'm glad that you are. I do like certainly the shooting. I know that is something that Elon is into also. We'll see if he is able to continue to produce when he has lost some of the access that he had previously. Speaking of guys who can score without much access, including losing the very hot centerman that he was playing with, we got to talk about Mason Marchment. There are 2 players in the NHL who have scored more points than Mason Marchment over the last 30 days. Their names may be familiar to you, Connor McDavid and Matthew Tkachuk, and they are doing it from line 1, I guess in Tkachuk's case, line 2-ish, and power play 1 positions, while Marchment is not. He has, 19 points over these last 14 games, just playing out of his mind. The wildest thing, all 10 of his goals have come at even strength. Only 3 of those points overall are on the power play. So he is making it happen at even strength. That's what you love to see, because then if they, get an expanded opportunity on the power play, maybe then we're talking about being able to kind of hit that next level of scoring. Marchment is up to 69% rostered in Yahoo, which at this point of the season is probably most of your active leagues. So I'm not saying run out and grab him, although certainly if he is lying around the waiver wire, what are you waiting for? Here's my question for you. I have a list of guys with better track records and or more consistent deployment. Would you trade your Marchment for one of these guys? First up, Jared McCann, 23 points in 29 games, nothing over the last 4, as close to the guy in Seattle as you're going to get. Would you trade your Marchment for Jared McCann?
I think I would trade Marchment for Jared McCann. I'm a McCann owner in my home league. I really like getting the guy instead of a guy, as you've said. So I probably do trade him for Jared McCann, yes.
All right, Steven Stamkos, just 13 points in 28 games, but line 1, line 2 deployment and permanent power play 1 status. Obviously a much longer track record of success, although when we say someone has a very long track record, at a certain point we're hitting the other side of that aging curve. Would you trade your Marchment for Steven Stamkos?
Boy, this one's tougher, Lewis. Stamkos' track record comes with a Nikita Kucherov, and a Nikita Kucherov is not firing pucks across the ice towards him in that OV spot. And I think he might just be past it. So I think despite my concerns about the top 9 in Dallas, I think I probably don't trade Marchment for Stamkos.
All right, you heard it here first. Ryan Downey says Stamkos is washed. Now I'm just putting words in your mouth here. All right, this one maybe is too crazy. Nico Hischier, 0 points in the last 3 games, 12 points in the last 17. Marchment has 19 in the past 17. A skilled player among many skilled players, had an outstanding start to the season, but has certainly cooled off lately. Would you trade your Marchment for Hischier?
100%.
Yeah,
no question.
That's what I said too. And I feel like the Heischer owner is like probably laughing at me. I wrote actually too crazy with a question mark there just to check myself a little bit. All right, last one. Ivan Barbashev, 16 points in the past 17, just 1 point in the last 4, seeing less power play time than Marchment, but seems fairly stapled in place next to Jack Eichel. Would you trade Marchment for Barbashev?
Yes, I would trade him for Barbashev because of Jack Eichel. I think Jack Eichel is maybe one of the quietest 115-point pace players that we've seen since Braden Point a couple of years ago. He doesn't seem to get enough credit for his offensive game, at least out on the East Coast where we are. So yes, I do trade Marchment for Barbashev, I think, just because of Jack Eichel.
Another thing I like with Barbashev is he is going to give you a nice, decent floor with his hitting, even though it's not worth a ton. If you're in a categories league, that's nice. Or if you're in a league that gives it some decent points, Cacupful's only 0.25 for those hits, but still, provides you with a decent floor. As someone who rostered Kiefer Sherwood, I know a thing or two about getting a few extra bonus points from the hits section. All right. I just want to read the headline on this one, and then I'll let you dive into your response. How is Kent Johnson 31% owned in Yahoo? He is owned appropriately in the Cacupful. Fine. What more are people looking for from this guy on this team that was not supposed to be offensively exciting? He has scored in nearly every game, 2 more points on Tuesday. Ryan, what is going on in 69% of not nice Yahoo leagues?
I have no earthly idea, Lewis, because Kent Johnson rocks. It sometimes takes these smaller skilled guys time to develop, especially when they start in the NHL so early in their careers. Let's not forget that Kent Johnson made his debut in the league at the age of 19, right after his draft. Even top players like Connor Bedard this season are not immune to the vagaries of performance early in one's career. I just want to take you through some of those early days with Kent Johnson. He was a half point a game in his second season in the NHL. That's hard to do for a 20-year-old. And while he did take a step back in his age 21 season, I think it's important to note that he was playing under some of the worst head coaches to ever stand behind an NHL bench in Brad Larson and Pascal Vincent. Dean Evison, on the other hand, is used to coaching young talent. See Boldy Matthew and Kaprizov Kirill. And I'm really glad that he seems to be giving KJ the opportunity on the top line that he so desperately needs to become the player that a lot of us prospect heads knew he could be. Yeah. As you said, point per game this season. And that's with being mired in a 5-game streak with only 2 goals. Interestingly enough, the thing that has changed this season is he's shooting a lot more, about a half shot more per game than his career average. So yeah, he's a season-long hold for me, as long as Columbus can keep scoring.
Yeah, and it seems like Columbus is starting to rely on him a little bit more for what he's going to be able to produce for them, playing obviously a pretty important role here. So good on a good Michigan boy, making good for Columbus. I joked last week about 3 Michigan players had scored the Columbus goals, and I think it was mostly what we saw here today too. And I said, the Buckeyes could pay us back by blowing it in the shoe. And of course, I was joking because there was no chance that was going to happen. But I already talked about this last week. I can't dwell too much on the past here. But good on him. Good on KJ. He may have the most boring name in the NHL next to Riley Smith, but he is playing some really exciting hockey right now. All right, and then you had one last little activity for us here. As some of the listeners know, I'm a soccer player, but also a volleyball player. And usually when I'm getting here, I'm coming right out of a volleyball game. Not today, a little less sweaty than usual. But you were going to give me some set me up for some spikes here, it sounds like, or at least hit some free balls over. I haven't seen much from this. So I'm ready to go. Tell me about what we're going to be discussing right here at the end.
Yeah, Lewis, I know that Zoom is kind of a shoulders up medium, but I know for a fact sometimes you leave your shin pads on when you are doing the Short Shifts podcast. So I hope you left them on now, because I'm going to throw up a couple free balls for you. First one I have for you is Jonathan Marchessault, like you mentioned earlier, scoring from Steven Stamkos and Philip Forsberg against the Flames. And last I checked, the Predators were leading. I think that game might be close to over now. And Marchessault scored a second goal from Forsberg. Is there a chance that these Preds will start to get going and make my take on Stamkos look very bad?
So we've talked for the whole first part of the season here that we want to see Nashville improve, that we assume and think strongly that Nashville will improve. They were shooting some god-awful on-ice percentage number. I can't remember what it was, but obviously single digits and very ugly. So I'm not surprised to see that they are starting to come around a little bit. They've got a top line right now with Stamkos, Marchment, and Forsberg that has most of their offensive talent on it in one go. That worries me because that depth really isn't there. We're seeing them behind right now, 3-4 to a pretty bad Calgary team. So, I think it's great for Marchment. It's a nice opportunity. I'm trying very hard not to be frustrated thinking that it could be my sick Nyquist who could be tapping in or tipping in those shots. But overall, I think we expected this kind of regression. I don't know if it's going to be enough to pull these Nashville players out of the funk they've mired themselves into entirely. I think it would be very hard for them to do anything other than improve their pace for the remainder of the season. I think it'll still kind of be a disappointment at the end. But if you are looking at potentially trading for one of these players, you don't care about what they've done up to this point. You care about what they're going to do the rest of the way. And so, you may be seeing the window close a little bit on your Stamkoses and your Marchessaults if they start to, show some significant improvement. Whether they can do that consistently remains to be seen. But that's what I would be keeping my eye out for.
Google's AI assistant tells me that a point scored off of a free ball is a free ball kill. So, Lewis, I think you killed it on that one. Let me serve this one up for you. Owen Tippett, 5 goals in 5 games, shooting throughout, starting to heat up in Philadelphia. What do you make of his recent resurgence?
Well, it's obvious that he is playing together with the greatest Philadelphia Flyer since Eric Lindros, Matvei Mishkov. But yeah, I think that second line with Tippett and I believe Frost has been playing really nice. Tippett is a volume shooter, which I love. I know you love. I know Elon loves. That's the kind of stuff that we like to see from him. It has been a bit of a tough road, but I would be looking at Tippett if he is around or potentially available for you in free agency. I think that some people maybe are scared off a little bit of Philadelphia just because they have seen, a long series of unsuccessful offensive players there. But it does seem like they found a little bit of a groove here. Put up 5 goals tonight against Columbus. Gave up 3 in return, which was tough, but when they were up at one point, I think 5-1. I really like what I'm seeing, from those top 2 lines. That top 6 seems pretty decent. They've been dragging along some otherwise unremarkable defensemen for some runs of relevance. I really love to see it from Tippett. And I do think that he can continue, because he is known to put up that shot volume that we like to see from these improving scorers.
I'll take my opportunity to volley it back and score a point here in our little game and just add this little tidbit that Owen Tippett scored last season 28 goals in 78 games played, which means he was goalless in 67.9% of those games, 53. The best goal scorers are streaky. You often find that with guys like Austin Matthews and David Pastrnak even. So I think if I was holding Tippett, I would be holding for quite a long time, especially with this Michkov deployment. Next one we want to talk about here is Mark Scheifele, who took a 4-game face-off holiday, slumming it on the wing for a bit on that top line. And in the 5 games since he started taking them again, he's over 50% in 4 of those games and scored 2 goals tonight on snapshots. Not even a little wrist shot or a tap in. He's snapping it. Can Scheifele managers exhale now that his wrist looks to be back to normal and it looks like he will still be a top 20 fantasy asset this season?
Yeah, and I think this finally gives us a chance to, see a team make a good health decision for one of their players. They gave him that break. He wasn't continually aggravating the injury, and he comes out and he performs quite well. I think the Scheifele owners, they can ease their panic. He didn't spend enough time on the wing to get winger eligibility. I think that's the one downside to his face-off vacation. But good on him for getting it back together. I love to see it because my opponent is running out Jeremy Swayman this evening. So even though I haven't seen a short shifts bump in terms of my players scoring, I have seen a bit of a bump in terms of my opponents getting caved in. Swayman now with 6 goals against and just 20 saves. So a rough outing for him, but we know that Winnipeg can score. We talked last time about how much they scored when they were on their winning streak, and it seems like they might be getting back to their winning ways here.
And speaking of players playing injured and teams perhaps making the right or wrong decision to play them, you had something to share about David Pastrnak tonight, who, when I checked, was playing fewer shifts than Marchand and Zacha while maintaining a 45-second shift length, thanks to shiftchart.com. What do you have on David Pastrnak?
Just that the observation from Patty and some of the other Boston fans were suggesting that maybe he was playing injured. He was able to pot a goal. So good on him for managing that. I know his owners are happy to see it, but yeah, a little bit worried that we might be seeing Pastrnak play with an injury. Hopefully he can keep playing through it rather than taking some time off. I think he was close to a cardio session, not scoring anything before he had that goal. So good that we got that. But yeah, maybe a little bit. Obviously our Pasta owners are probably already fairly concerned, but I might be ramping up that concern a little bit too. Keep an eye on game day tweets to see if we get any updates on how Pastrnak is doing. And with that, Ryan, we are going to bring this to a close. Thanks for another great show. Really fun hanging out with you. Thanks everybody who joined us. Quick plug here. We are looking for more patrons to fill up the wait list to join the Keeping Karlsson Ultimate Patron Fantasy League. It is a 700 plus manager tiered league with promotion and relegation. And we have open slots that we want to get people into. You won't necessarily end up in the same division that your team that you're taking over ends up in, but being on the wait list gives you a chance to dip your toes into the league. And I do believe you get kind of first dibs on open spots, in higher tiers when the new season arrives. We have attrition every season, so people are able to move up just by virtue of other teams leaving, and you can get kind of on the list to be moved up in that way. So if you are interested, keepingkarlsson.com/patron. So you can join the Patreon group. You can get ad-free episodes if you become a super supporter. At any level of patronage, you can interact with Brian, Helon, the Short Shifts crew, and hundreds of other talented fantasy managers on our active Discord server. I mentioned game day tweets. Go check it out and get all the best information from Twitter without having to actually be on Twitter. And please visit that site and the other great sites we use to research our episodes at Yahoo, Frozen Tools, and Natural Stat Trick. Our intro and outro music was created by Pat Roach. And until we see you next time, play smart and keep your shifts short.